Another edition of Orange and Blue today, and we had him on from the Scouting Combine, so we bring it back with Mike Tanier. Mike, the Broncos made me so happy because you make me happy whenever I get your email from your Substack. Everyone subscribe to Mike Tanier's Substack. So that makes me happy every morning when I see the email that you've released something new. And it makes me happy the Broncos finally got a flipping quarterback, huh?
I was terrified. that we were going to come out of this draft. I'd have to write draft grades for the Substack, and I'd have to say, hey, Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham they're the future. And I have to sort of make sense of what the team was doing. So you bring in Bo Nix to say, okay, here it is. Here is somebody who is a viable starting quarterback for the Broncos. It shows that Sean Payton is not just goofing around.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking to myself, okay, if they don't go quarterback, are they bringing in Ryan Tannehill this week? I mean, the options weren't appetizing, although it is interesting to think of the alternate universe. What if Bo Nix somehow hadn't fallen to the Broncos? Because we were talking with Chad Ryder of NFL.com yesterday, and he talked about the Rams being very keen on Bo Nix to the point where that was a big reason why the Broncos couldn't trade down. But once it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 QBs in the top 10, I mean, what if somebody had valued Nix enough to jump the Broncos at 11? I mean, I look back, I'm like, that's a little bit of the nightmare scenario there for the Broncos in terms of getting what they want at QB.
Right, absolutely. It could have been as simple as the Giants deciding they were going to move on, and that could have caused the problem. The Vikings were this variable where they could have traded up a lot further than they did. They traded up one spot. They could have said, there's nobody left, we need somebody, and done that. And, I don't know. I do get the impression that Sean Payton could say, well, because I am Sean Payton and because I have complete control of this organization and this gravitas and this background, I can shepherd us through this year with these two cornball quarterbacks. And the good thing,
wow.
I guess you'd get Malik Neighbors in this scenario. You would wind up with this marquee player at least, or the best defensive player in the draft, whoever you consider that to be. So there would have been a little bit of silver lining, or maybe there would have been a trade down there. But it would be hard to look at it as anything but say this isn't even a rebuilding year. This is like a pre-rebuilding year if you don't put Bo Nix on the roster.
He is Mike Tanier. Everyone subscribe to his Substack, one of the brightest minds and funniest minds about the National Football League. If people don't believe in Bo Nix, shouldn't they just believe in Sean Payton? How do you weigh that combination, Mike?
I'm not a huge believer in just believe in the coach no matter what. I watched Mike Shanahan years ago in Washington put Rex Grossman and John Beck out there and say, these are my quarterbacks for a year. These guys will do that. Okay. But when you spend the draft pick, it's different. You spend the draft capital, you bring the guy in, then that is pretty much an endorsement. And I think there's a stereotype of Bo Nix that doesn't necessarily match who he is. I could cite you numbers. I can find them real quick. He did throw more screen passes than any other quarterback worth mentioning in the nation. I think it was him and the kid from Western Kentucky threw more screens. He also was very good throwing downfield. He's also a pretty good runner. He can move a little bit. So a lot of the stuff that's talked about is either a couple of year old scouting report from Auburn when everything was going pear-shaped there, right? Or it's well, I watched Oregon and he threw a screen pass to that Bucky Irving kid, and now he's just a dink and dunker. There's more to his story than that.
So let's kind of dive in a little bit to that story. I mean, obviously, we've talked a lot on this show about Sean Payton having that visit with Bo Nix in Eugene. But, you mentioned Auburn and Oregon. As you're watching him progress and evolve as a draft prospect, what improved about him when he went from Auburn to Eugene the last couple of years?
Everything. Everything improved. And I dug into sort of not so much the film of him because it was putrid, but the background of what was going on in that program, and it was just a mess. And at some point you throw your hands up and say, well, this was not a no-win situation for a young quarterback. And if he had not progressed at all, or if he'd only progressed a little bit at Oregon, you'd say, well, okay, maybe he's an older prospect and this was it at the end of his career. He progressed by leaps and bounds, and he becomes a more accurate passer downfield. He's a better touch passer downfield. When you do take away the screen passes, which are not really decisions because it's like hike, boop, it just goes to the side, it looks like he's a better decision maker. You see him in game high leverage situations making the throws that you have to make there, and you say these are all the things that I think were missing early in his career, where he was the athlete at Auburn, go run around and make something happen. Oh, by the way, your coach is fired and his replacement benched you.
Yeah, there you go. And Mike Tanier, Substack, you got to subscribe because, Mike, your ears have to be ringing because I bring you up quite a bit on this show. And there's two numbers from your Substack that I have worked on with Denver fans. And like, okay, there's two numbers you need to know that Mike Tanier brought to light. 150 micro passes. Okay, we've discussed that. But then it's the yards per attempt under pressure.
Oh, yeah.
8.9. Caleb Williams was at 3.9. Bo Nix is better than Caleb. Okay. But isn't it under pressure? Isn't it what you do on third down when you're blitzed, when you're under duress, that can really tell the tale of a quarterback?
Absolutely. It's one of the most important tells. And I think people in the analytics community are starting to really look for that in college stats. You'll hear things about the sack to pressure rate. How often is the quarterback pressured? How often is he sacked? That's a big sign. Years ago, we would just use the sack total, the raw sack total. Right. This kid was sacked in college 45 times. Why on earth is a college quarterback getting sacked 45 times? They can run. They've got all these screens. It's wide open. It's spread formations. In Nix's case, you do have exceptional numbers under pressure. Another thing that really stood out for me was his numbers when he was throwing 15-plus air yards. So we're talking about downfield passes, okay? He completes 56.4% of his deep passes, 56% of deep passes. That's better than Drake May. That's better than McCarthy. That's better than Michael Penix. That is up there with Daniels, whose numbers are off the charts this year, and with Caleb Williams, the star of everything. So you say, oh, he's just throwing short, or, you know, he can respond to pressure by dumping the ball off. He is consistently pushing the ball downfield and doing it with a high degree of efficiency.
Well, you have a piece back from a couple of months ago talking about the micro passes. And of course, in there, among the things you've got embedded is some film of Drew Brees when he was in college. I mean, it's sort of the obvious comp here, but Cecil also went back, looked at some scouting reports from 01, and literally some of the same language said about Brees was said about Nix. Yeah. It's probably an unfair comparison, but is in terms of skill set, is this the closest thing we've seen to Brees as a prospect near the top of the draft in some time?
Yeah, I get very nervous when we start bringing Brees in. Like, it's one of those comps I try to avoid using. You can see some of the similarities in the way he played. And I think what you're talking about is the way the offense was framed back then. It's like, oh, well, this guy from Purdue is a little undersized and, you know, and he throws a lot of short passes. But look at that wacky spread offense, because Purdue was running a spread when no one else was in the Big Ten back then. And you get some of that still with Oregon with the amount of plays they do with their offense now. One of the guys that like struck me is he reminded me a little of Baker Mayfield. Personality-wise, no, in no way, because Mayfield was that, Mayfield. Mayfield was Mayfield. But, in that there was kind of a misapprehension of the way he played the game. There is a daringness to some of the things that Nix does. He will go off structure and throw the ball downfield. He'll go off structure, see a lane, and run with effectiveness. Maybe not the fastest guy, but he's tearing up the sidelines. He's taking the hit at the end of the play if he needs a first down. I see elements of that. Now, Mayfield has been up and down, of course. But now that we're seeing him a little later in his career, we realize, okay, the Browns thing was a complete fiasco. Maybe with better coaching, he would have grown into a more conventional franchise starting quarterback. That's one of the things that Bo Nix has the capability of doing.
Mike Tanier, Too Deep Zone, Substack. Everyone subscribe right now. And let's talk about that. I'm going to quote Jules from Pulp Fiction and be like, personality goes a long way with me, right? And you just brought up the personality of Baker Mayfield. The personality of Bo Nix is pretty businesslike. Yes. The personality of Drake May is a little Leave It to Beaver-ish, and that's why some teams have told me that he failed in their interview process.
Okay.
So where do you come down on this? Because like Jaden Daniels owned our soul, right? When we were all at the combine, it's like, oh my God, Jaden Daniels, he owns our soul. Like, where do you come down on personality and Nick specifically being very, kind of rigid in his demeanor?
NFL guys like the person with the milquetoast bland personality. They don't want to see a lot of like exciting, interesting stuff from their quarterbacks. They love Kirk Cousins. They love that type of guy. the Tom Brady's and all of them were that kind of guy too. Drew Brees was that kind of guy. Eli was that kind of guy. When you look at the New York Giants, Daniel Jones is that kind of guy, so he gets 37 chances. He's that kind of guy, so he's the quarterback, and we're not drafting another. It's remarkable. And it doesn't matter what I like or that I might differ with NFL guys. If NFL guys like that guy, they're going to work with them. Okay, and that's what it boils down to. And I said this about Caleb Williams, who's a little bit of an otter duck. Okay, and it's like, I don't think that's damning or whatever, but it doesn't matter if I think he's cool or interesting. If some coach is like, I don't like this kid's cell phone case or whatever, it can turn into friction and it can be self-fulfilling prophecy. The opposite of that is Nix. If Payton looks at Nix and says, this kid's just about football, it's about showing up every day, come in after a loss and say, okay, let's look at the film and then let's get back on the field. Come in after a win and say, okay, let's just look at the film and get back on the field. Payton's going to be comfortable with that. His assistant's going to be comfortable with that, and it's going to put Bo Nix in the best position to succeed.
It's funny because the coaches, they want predictability and they kind of want that football focus. One thing that we noticed about Bo Nix when he was answering questions the day after he was drafted, if you really wanted him to open up, you asked something kind of detailed about football. Like the best answer that he gave was when he was asked about what it meant to have a good processor. And he went on for 2 minutes about it. He expounded on this. And so it's almost like, to me, that what some coaches are looking for is someone who maybe there are other elements to their personality, but when it comes down to it, when they walk in the building, they're looking for somebody who's all about ball and has a minimum of diverse interests beyond sports.
And I think there's two elements to that. And one is, they really worry about the guy throws 3 interceptions, takes a loss on his smartphone for the next 2 days afterwards, shows up in the building curled up in a little ball. They're worried about that. That's been a problem that we've seen more recently. In Philly a couple of years ago, we saw a guy who had that kind of personality. They don't want that type of thing. The other side of it is, especially with these younger players, you don't know when you start talking to them how much football they can really talk. You will get these guys, big, I'm a strong arm, and I throw the ball to the open receiver is about all you get from them. And it's like, I haven't really gotten deep into the playbook. Like my college coaches didn't need me to go that deeply into the playbook, just get out there and play. And when they start hearing that these guys can say, I can talk about my process a little bit. If you bring up that old play, I remember what I had to go through to get to the receiver I went through. When they hear that, they know that they're not going to have to worry about that element of the game. And then if the kid is also like, well, I'm not super emotional about these other things, they're less worried about the idea that they're going to curl up into a little ball, the sign of adversity.
He is Mike Tanier, Two Deep Zone, Substack. Everyone subscribe now. Mike, my final one for you. And again, appreciate your time, brother. As always, appreciate your friendship. You're just an awesome dude. Everyone gets their guy, right? So the Broncos got their guy. All right. How do you discern? How do you pick that apart? Because like the Vikings got JJ McCarthy, but he wasn't their guy. I do believe Nix was the guy that was going to be available. They like Caleb. They like Jaden. They got Nix. But when teams say, we got our guy, what does Mike Tanier say?
In this particular case, I say, well, I mean, first of all, the Broncos didn't have much choice in the matter. I think you're right when you say that Sean Payton does look for the Drew Brees and he's looking for some Drew Brees elements, and he gets that. And I guess my only question right now is, okay, you got your guy. Do the Broncos have enough around him right now? Okay. Obviously, you lost some pieces. Sutton's in the air a little bit. Some of the guys that you were counting on a couple of years ago, like guys like Garett Bolles, are now getting older. We don't know what the future is. It doesn't matter if you get your guy if you can't put the pieces around him. And I don't really know what's in place right now and if that's going to be enough to support this young quarterback.
So last one from me. Speaking of those pieces, Sutton's skill set definitely fit Russell Wilson better. Russ run around, throw up a jump ball. So in the 4th round, they bring in Troy Franklin, who a lot of people thought might have gone earlier, but he appears to be the type of receiver who functions well with Bo Nix. How much can that give Nix a leg up when he gets out there on the practice field starting in a couple of weeks? And he's swimming in all this stuff schematically and nomenclature-wise. But when he's out there, he does have one guy with whom he already has chemistry.
That's the thing. And he's got an ally right there in this individual. And you got somebody who has quickness, and I don't think of Sutton as somebody with a lot of quickness. It's long speed and verticality, etc. So you add that in, and I think those things help. I guess when I do look at the young quarterback, having that ally, having somebody from college, have chemistry with is good. I need to know, like, who are you looking at on 3rd and 5, and who is that guy? And that's not really Sutton's game. And I don't know if that's a lot to ask of a rookie in Franklin. And I'm not sure who's going to be there at that point. I know there's other players there. There's Mims, etc. But that's one of the questions that we'll have to answer starting, I guess, in minicamp, starting very soon, as to who those other people are going to be for Nix.
Lots of questions. Too many questions left to be answered. I only have one question. Mike, can we go back to that punk rock bar in Philadelphia and have another shared moment? What was the name of that punk rock bar? What was it?
It was Tattooed Moms. It was Tattooed Moms on South Street. And it's been a minute. I was looking for the picture of it, and like all the pictures, none of them have me in it. It's a lot of pictures of you in the old bumper car. And I didn't want to share it without your permission. But
that's fine. That's fine. You
need an excuse to get back here, and we can definitely do that. And I got to get out to Denver, and I haven't been to Denver in about 10 years, and partake of some of the nightlife, the old guy nightlife out there.
Yeah, of course, of course. And Mason, I would love to have you anytime. He is Mike Tanier, and we just appreciate you. Everyone get to a Substack, Too Deep Zone. It is flipping fantastic. But before we're out of here, Mace, how do they help us out on YouTube?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you
never miss a vid. Yeah, you got it, Mike. You got it.
There you go. We got this. Everyone, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. It's Orange and Blue today. OBT is ABFD. He's Mace. I'm Cease. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. And would you please stay frosty?